just feel worthless. And I realized it's connected to this micro trauma that I had as a 7-year-old little girl. And as painful as that journey was for me, imagine if everything you thought you knew about your community, your family, your friends, yourself was a lie. Everything you were taught to believe as a child was an illusion to get you to comply and to conform to what others expected of you. What if I told you that your entire identity is based on the lies that others have been telling you again and again and again? Stop and think. Take a moment to really dig deep and ask yourself, am I currently living my most authentic self? Am I living my life based on my own wants and needs? Or am I living my life based on what others expect of me? If your answer was the latter, you are not alone. I myself have been going through a lot of self-reflection and inner work and have realized that I have not been living my most authentic self either. Through my journey of self-reflection and inner work, I came across this book by Dr. Shefali called A Radical Awakening. And this book has shaken and awakened me to my core. This is the most profound and powerful book I have ever read in my lifetime, and I want to encourage anyone who is watching this video to read this too. I started reading this book at a time in my life when I felt like I was going through a transformation as a mother, a wife, a daughter, a friend, a human. And I've been thinking a lot about all of the micro and macro traumas that I've experienced in my childhood and how they have shaped me into the person I am today. And all of the social constructs and belief systems that I was taught from such a young age to believe were true. I've really been trying to understand myself better and all of the relationships around me. And this book truly came at the most transformational time in my life. It was one day before my 34th birthday, and I felt like it was such a sentimental time in my life because I felt like I was closing in on one chapter and beginning a next. And this book really put things into perspective for me and guided me to really understand who I am at my core. What is my true essence? I wanted to briefly interrupt this video to tell you that I started listening to this audiobook on Audible the moment I got home from our family vacation so that I could finish it on the go. And I have been using Audible for the last few years and allows me to discover and enjoy an abundance of audiobooks, podcasts, and Audible originals all in one place. With that said, I am so grateful that they are sponsoring this portion of the video because I have been a long-term devoted customer myself. If I am to be completely honest, I actually enjoyed listening to this audiobook even more on Audible because it is narrated by Dr. Shefali herself, and listening to the author narrate their own audiobook makes it profoundly more powerful to listen to, and that's one of the things I love most about Audible. I also love using the app to listen to my favorite titles and podcasts when I'm in the car, working out, or doing chores around the house. It makes those tasks feel a lot more enjoyable. It's something I look forward to every day, and it is a ritual that is part of my daily routine. I always feel uplifted and inspired after listening to a good title or podcast. There are thousands of titles across many genres to choose from, such as health and wellness, business, memoirs, and productivity. I recently enjoyed listening to Mindset by Carol Dweck and Atomic Habits by James Clear, and after listening to A Radical Awakening by Dr. Shefali, I wanted to dive into her bestseller, The Conscious Parent, and so far it is blowing my mind. New members can get a free trial of Audible using my link audible.com/nikisky or text the code nikisky to 500. Start living your best life today and download the Audible app. Trust me, it will change your life. So I wanted to share with you the most powerful and transformative takeaways from this book without giving away too much, because I do want to encourage everyone who's watching this video to read this book, especially if you are a woman. I think that the messages in this book are something that will resonate with every woman and will truly, truly transform your life for the better. So this book is not an easy read when it comes to breaking down your old constructs and ideas of your entire world. In the beginning, it feels very harsh because it's hard to understand and comprehend that everything that we believed about ourselves and our life is just a facade. But I feel like that work and that obstacle is so important to get past, because that's the only way that you're going to learn and grow and heal. So the first thing that Dr. Shefali does is really break down your ego and makes you understand that majority of the things that we do in our lives, majority of the decisions that we make in our lives are led by our ego. And this leads to the creation of our false self, which over time, when we keep repeating, making decisions that don't align with our true self, it creates a greater and greater disconnect from who we are in essence and who we portray ourselves to be to the outside world. And I think this is so, so important to understand from a very young age, and it's making me emotional just thinking about it, because from birth, we're kind of being told and shaped and molded to be humans and individuals that we never had any vote in, no say in. And when we become cognitive enough to understand the things that we are being taught and told, we don't have the capacity to understand that these are ideas that are being placed upon us by someone else's wants and desires, instead of looking on the inside and thinking about what it is we want and desire. So this is something that I really had to understand myself. And as a mother myself, I also want to be very cautious and careful about how I raise my children. And I want them to listen to their own intuition and do things that align with their true essence, instead of my wants and desires for them, or my husband's wants and desires for them. I also realized that all of these expectations are not only found in the household itself, but they're also found in the communities that we grow up in, or the societies that we are raised in. I came to the realization how society and our environment has shaped us into subservient and fearful individuals who conform to the standards that are expected of us. So instead of doing the things that we truly want to do, we have all of these unreasonable expectations of what we should be doing. We should be going to school. We should be having a particular job. We should be settling down by a certain age. We should be having families. All of these social constructs have been designed by our society and is not giving us space and freedom to really think about and decide if this is the path that we really want to take for ourselves, or is this something that is being ingrained into our being. Another really important thing that this book talks about is about every individual's different micro and macro traumas that they have experienced throughout their lifetime and how it has shaped them as a human being. So I can remember so many micro and macro traumas that happened to me throughout my lifetime that stick out to me like a sore thumb. And if I look back at them, in hindsight, they didn't seem so extravagant, but if I look at how it shaped my life and shaped me as a person, it definitely did have a profound impact. One of the examples from the top of my head, in hindsight, seemed like a very micro trauma, but it's something that stuck with me until this day. And that is when I was at the age of 7, I really wanted to be a successful competitive Latin dancer, and I had a coach who was tearing me down, more specifically tearing down all of the female dancers. And I was obviously too young to understand how much of a negative impact that this would have on me for the rest of my life. And I kind of just absorbed it and moved on, but it's something that stuck with me to this day. The words that she would put into my head and the way that she would make me feel made me feel worthless and made me feel like I was never going to be good enough. And it's still something that I feel today whenever I feel like I'm failing at something or something's not working out. I just feel worthless. And I realized it's connected to this micro trauma that I had as a 7-year-old little girl, comparing myself to all of the other female dancers and seeing how they were performing in comparison to how I was doing. And even though I was trying my very best, I still felt like a failure. And as a mom, it's so important to me to see my daughter thrive at whatever it is she does. It's not only important for me to have her surrounded with supportive and uplifting teachers and coaches to kind of guide her in the right direction and build her confidence, but for me as a mother, it's also important to remind her that she is good enough and that at the end of the day, perfection is not what we're trying to strive for. I just want her to enjoy herself. I want her to have fun. I want her to learn and grow. And the moment that she's not having fun and she's not learning and growing, that's when it's time to move on to the next thing. So that one really, really hit home with me. More recently, I wanted to talk about a macro trauma that I had about 6 years ago when I had my first miscarriage. And when I had my first miscarriage, and then after that I had multiple miscarriages and chemical pregnancies, and I was going through IVF, and it felt like years of an endless battle between myself and what I thought to be the medical system, which is part of it. I do think that the medical system has a lot of inefficiencies and flaws. Our medical system is just not in a good place at all to help support women and families through this process. But I also realized that the most important thing was that I was in a battle with myself. I was looking at myself as a failure because I could not keep a pregnancy naturally on my own, or so I thought. And this is what I was told to believe by the doctors, that there was something wrong with me, that I could get pregnant, but for whatever reason, my body just did not want to keep the pregnancies, and I would never be able to carry a healthy child to term and have a healthy pregnancy unless I went through the system. And I believed this with every fiber of my being for 2 years, and I hit rock bottom. I was the most depressed I've ever been because I wanted to be a mother more than anything in my life. And as painful as that journey was for me, this book made me realize that I needed to go through that trauma to heal, to grow, and to get my power back as a woman and as a mother. And now as a mother, I understand why I had to go through that, because it forced me to transform into the mother that I am today. And I feel like I have a much greater appreciation for being a mother and for having my children in my life, and the way that I approach motherhood in its entirety. I feel it is very unconventional, and I understand now why I had to go through what I went through in order to be where I am now. So I love that Dr. Shefali talks about looking at your past traumas, understanding them and deconstructing them, and going through that healing process, as painful as it is. Like, this has happened to me 6 years ago, and sometimes it's still painful to talk about, but I feel like as women, we have this ability to be vulnerable and to open up and to talk about our failures. I think it's so, so important to be able to talk about these things, to not only give hope to others who are going through similar experiences, but also to let you know that you are not alone, that there are other women that are going through the same thing, that you are worthy, that you can do whatever it is you want to do. Your body is capable. You are enough. And it doesn't matter what anyone tells you. If you feel it and you believe it in your soul, you can conquer mountains. I feel like our society is constantly bombarding us with all of these ideas of perfectionism, of being the perfect mother, of being the perfect wife, of having a successful business, doing it all. And it's just not possible. And it terrifies me to think about the idea that in a few years from now, my daughter is going to be exposed to social media and she's going to have access to all of this information that she's not going to know what to do with. She won't be able to process it. She's just not equipped to handle all of this information in such a short period of time. And I am concerned for her emotional and mental well-being. And I want to make sure that as a mother, I protect that as much as possible and I equip her as best as I can to be able to manage all of these things on her own. And if I can do that as a mother and as a woman, that is truly, truly going to be one of my biggest accomplishments in my lifetime. One of the things that I really, really love about this book is that it really hones in on womanhood and shows us how in a world where we are constantly being divided and being forced to be in competition with each other, whether it's to make up our faces or color our hair or get plastic surgery or have the nicest handbag collection, whatever it may be, I feel like society has really driven us apart. And this book really brings all of those toxic realities to the surface so you really understand them, and it brings you back to your true self, and it makes you realize that we are all in this together. We are all going through this together, and we will actually be a lot more powerful together if we support each other, if we connect with each other, if we understand each other, if we come from a place of compassion and worship for one another instead of competition and tearing each other down. I feel like I am in a very privileged position to be able to have a large audience on YouTube and a large audience on Instagram. And even though when I started these platforms, I feel like I was doing it for different reasons. I feel like over the last few years, I've been feeling more and more disconnected from that old Niki that I was, and I feel like I'm understanding that more and more, and I'm really coming back to my true essence and just creating content that really resonates with me and the place that I am in my life now. And I understand that another reason why I went through that journey of infertility for as long as I did and hit rock bottom and went through depression and then finally ended up conceiving my two beautiful babies naturally without any help. I truly, truly believe that I went through all of that to help other women who are going through this journey too. And I feel like that is part of my purpose. That is part of what I'm supposed to be doing here on earth. And it took me a long time to realize that, because for many, many years, I've been kind of brushing it under the rug, and I was just telling myself, okay, this is something that, other women go through. So what? What is so unique about my experience? And I realized we are all unique. All of our stories are unique, and it's all part of our own life story. And if we kind of brush it under the rug and don't talk about it, it just creates more disconnect in our community of womanhood, and it creates more rifts and more competition and less understanding and compassion. And we need to encourage each other to be in a non-judgmental, safe environment where we can share, we can communicate, we can lift each other up. And that's really, truly my goal with my YouTube platform and my Instagram platform. I really want to bring women together and help as many women as I possibly can. there is truly so much wisdom and so much reason in this book that helps you understand things from a completely different perspective than what we have been raised or taught to believe. And I truly think that this book can help so many people, which is why I wanted to make an entire video about this. You guys know, if you've been following me for a long time, I have never done a book review. I love reading books, but I always felt like no one really would care to know which books I'm reading. But this book was so powerful and so transformative for me that I felt like I needed to share it with as many people as I could. I will link it down below. And again, if you're like me and you have a really busy lifestyle and it's very challenging for you to read a physical book, I highly recommend downloading Audible and listening to the digital version on Audible that's narrated by Dr. Shefali. I feel like it is just as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than the actual book itself, because you can hear it from her own words. And before I close out this video, I wanted to read this really beautiful poem from the book, and it's called The Time of the Awakened Woman. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she discards her old ways like tossed shoes in the garbage, when she shreds her list of shoulds and obligations, and when impossible expectations are burned in an incinerator. There comes a time in the life of a woman when the approval of others, once jewels, now turn into pennies in her sock, when the hunt for another is now replaced by a hunt for herself, and when parental tentacles of tradition no longer define her truth. There comes a time in the life of a woman when her desire to fit in with the crowd dissolves, when her manic compulsion to be perfect vaporizes, and when her obsession to be voted popular eviscerates. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she simply says no more, when facade, artifice, and guile leave her nauseated, and when righteousness, dogma, and superiority repulse her. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she no longer fears conflict, but faces it boldly like a lioness, when she guards her authenticity as fearlessly as she guards her babies, and when she drops the role of savior, knowing she can only save herself. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she no longer cowers in the shadows of her unworthiness, when she no longer plays small so others can feel big, and when she swaps the role of victim for the role of co-creator. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she unabashedly and boldly occupies her ultimate sovereignty, when she finally feels ready to claim her space in the world, and when she redefines compassion as unequivocal self-love. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she finally releases her childlike dependencies on others, when she dares to rewrite a new mandate of living for herself, one that says, I release unworthiness and fear, I divorce servility and passivity, I divest inauthenticity and enmeshment, I end the pretense of being someone I am not. And from now on, I declare, I will ascend into my highest power. I will embrace my greatest autonomy. I will celebrate my deepest worth. I will embody my fiercest courage and manifest the most authentic me. The time is now. I am ready to awaken into my renaissance. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a really emotional one for me to make, clearly. But I feel like it was very important, and I hope that anyone who is watching this will find it empowering. And I really, really, really hope and encourage you to buy this book or download this book and listen to it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my next one.